listening actively with no intent, letting go of whatever agenda you have. Like we say, we teach it, we talk to our clients about it. Living it out with your family, especially, is really been challenging me lately.
Hey, this is the RootsUp podcast with the Greenhouse coaching team. It's where growth-minded leaders explore growing the life they want, starting at the roots. Welcome back to the RootsUp podcast. And I'm Steve Perkins. I'm the founder of Greenhouse and I'm your host. And I'm really excited because we're bringing a fresh new approach to the podcast and you'll start to see it. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to just come along with us. But really our theme at Greenhouse is about helping you grow the life you want. And so we want to talk about everything related to work and life and the things in between. And today we're having Sundie Marquardt back on the podcast, who anyone listening along knows very well because she was the superstar of the show and I was just kind of trying to fit in. And then we talked about it a lot. At that point, she took a step back from the podcast for a while and is going to start coming back on occasionally. So we have a new process and she broke my process and she said, I'm not telling you what the topic is and you just have to show up and we're going to roll with it. And what it turned out to be about is the topic of listening, especially as it relates to adult children and her experience in the skill of listening with her adult children. So I think this is fascinating. It applies to life and leadership and everything we talk about here. And we go pretty deep, pretty fast. So today it's me and Sundie and Gabe, who you'll get to know better as well, talking about listening.
My children know that I always say, what the hey, all the time.
What the hey?
What the hey. It means what the hell, but I always do it. I always go, what the hey, whenever something goes wrong.
Did it start when they were little and you didn't want to finish
They're like,
the
Mom
word?
always says, what the hey.
We go, what the F?
Well, I say what the F. I say mother F all the time.
Yeah.
That's not as coy.
I
No.
know.
It sounds like,
We have this really great story that runs in our family. See, I use the F word a lot now in my 40s, 50s, because it's just like, I don't know, it's something shifted.
yeah.
And and I welcome it. But of course, when I was raising my littles, I was like, the F word is straight to hell. I mean, so I never cussed. I never cussed. And one time I was in the car with him and we lived in the country and we were going up this hill and all of them were in the car with me. And this 18-wheeler came barreling down a country road. And I was like, we were about to die. We literally were. And I said, what the really loud and pulled my car over. We survived. And all of my children, they didn't care about the truck or anything. Right. They couldn't believe the mother said it. Yeah. And the quote of the family now is, Mom said, this is what I said, I just want to make something really clear. When you're about to die, you are allowed to say the word. So they always used to throw it in there now. Like, I think I'm about to die.
Yeah.
I can say it now.
This is a life or death moment.
That's really a family story.
We have a similar trajectory with cursing.
Yeah.
In our family, like we were always like no cursing.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then it is funny, like in our 40s, like it started. Madeline, it's not like a lot. Yeah. But it's like everybody knows it's permissible now.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the right context, the right story, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's it's a whole topic to me because it's like there is a part of our cultural background that's like, oh, that's really bad, worse than other things. I'm like, but you just lied, manipulated someone, judged them. That's not bad.
I'll say you gossiped, and that's like actually, the most destructive thing you could do. Yeah. Like dropping an F-bomb actually is therapeutic at some point.
I also just think I don't know where and exactly how and what date it happened, but there's been a cultural shift too that it's just more acceptable.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know when it happened, but all of a sudden young people, it's just like normal part
shows
of the
and media.
Conversation
mainstream TV can have it now.
Well, that's true. Like, television shows, like it used to be.
Oh, beep.
Heavens, he said damn.
Yeah. I know.
Remember
just
in,
damn. I know.
What is it? Scarlett O'Hare, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, I don't give a damn.
I don't give a damn.
My parents were like, I don't know if you can see this movie now.
Well, and I like the beeps because it's like now you just made my kid more interested in what was said. Thanks.
What was that?
I think Steve knows this story, but we've talked about this too, that my youngest is very like an old woman. She's wise and So, I mean, she's gotten relaxed Sundie. So she's gotten like, just don't give up. I'm just saying it about a lot of things. So I definitely dropped the F-bomb like in front of her. And like one time I said it in the car right in front of her and I looked at her and I said, Leah, and she was like second grade. I go, I'm so sorry. I said, I cuss all the time in front of you. I was like, it's bad, right? I was like, and she goes, Mom, you don't need to apologize to me. She's like, I get it. She's like, you cuss around family and appropriately with friends and probably never at work. She goes, and I know that I will earn the right to do that appropriately at the right stage of life as well.
She's such a
But
guru.
now is not the time. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, what you said.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How you said
it.
I was like, how did that translate? It somehow did.
That's so funny.
She's so wise. We need to have Leah on the podcast.
I know.
That would actually be the one that goes viral.
I was actually going to maybe surprise you today. I guess I asked Cynthia to join me today because what I'm talking about is, and she said she would do it another time. Come with me, a mother-daughter talking about not taking the traditional path.
Is that what we're talking about today?
No, that was just something we were talking about that I was going to bring her in. Today. So she wasn't ready today because I threw it at her too quickly.
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe you could come because I've learned so much and she's learned so much.
That would be really interesting. Maybe we should all have our daughters on because they all can resonate with that, but they're different ages.
Lucy, tell me about your path.
Lucy's part will be the most interesting. She'll say some weird thing.
She will say some weird thing.
And then she'll lay down and then be done.
Yep. She'll just walk away.
Or start hopping on one foot.
Yep. She'll suddenly be upside down with her arm over. But what are we talking about today? This is not fair because I know usually we have a new process and I'm all ready with my notes I couldn't get ready. I know you didn't
get to get ready for anything. I love that you said, Sundie, come on in and chat with us and just talk to me about something you're passionate about. Like, first of all, it was like, which one? You know what I mean? I don't know about you, but I get quite passionate about several things.
Yeah.
But then I go through like nothing. This was one where I was like, which one am I thinking about lately? You know what I'm thinking about lately? I'm thinking about, it's under the category of adulting children. Mm-hmm. I have learned so much throughout the years with adulting children, but I keep learning. But here's what I really been thinking about lately. And it's going to sound so dull at first, and then I'll give you a story, but it's about listening actively with like no intent. Mm. Like letting go of whatever agenda you have. And do you agree that is...
It's extremely hard.
Freaking hard. Like we say it, we teach it, we talk to our clients about it. Let me tell you, like living it out with your family, especially, is really been challenging me lately. So I've been thinking about that. And I wanted to talk about a little bit about what I've been learning and experiencing and trying, and how it's been changing me.
Is this something you've just started thinking about how to do it better, or has that been there for you and it's just kind of more in front of you?
That's a great question. Because, I'm always passionate about communication. So I'm always thinking about communication. But I think I just like all things, it's like the levels keep changing and going deeper and understanding. I used to think I was a pretty good communicator, but I'm learning. I mean, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, what's the number one piece of advice you could give me to be a better communicator? Guess what it says?
Be better listening.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, part of why I asked this is because as a coach, I'm curious how this happened for you guys. Before I went to coaching school and started doing this as a profession, I thought, I'm a pretty good listener because I would get that feedback.
Yeah.
And then I go to coaching school and realize, oh my gosh, I don't know the first thing about listening.
Yeah.
There's all these layers and there's all this depth to it. And then I start doing it, and the more I've done this profession, the more I realize how bad I actually feel like I'm getting worse as a listener. But I think what's happening is I'm just becoming more aware of.
Yes, probably so. We'll say that's the one.
Okay. But what about you? What about you guys?
I agree that I think that with your awareness, sometimes you feel like you're becoming worse because you're really thinking about listening. I think that I always thought I have the same story. I think you've even told me, Sundie, you are such a good listener and you lean into curiosity.
Yeah.
But
you do. We've been in conversations before where it's me, you, and usually it's like a client we're working with.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to move the conversation on to something else. And she asks another question or two. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm like, wow, what incredible, like you were, and it was actual curiosity.
Yeah.
And those are some of the moments I realized, wow, I thought I was curious, but I was like ready to move on and tell my own story.
Right. I think too, like I'm thinking about something that happened earlier today with us. We were just talking about like zoning out, you know, like being in a conversation and zoning out. And I think something that hits me is like you can have the intention of listening, but your body language communicates something else. Your body language says, I'm no longer here. And I think like, I'm just curious, like with kids, I think they pick up on body language, like,
and they'll name it more readily.
But Sundie, I was curious for you, like when, like obviously you learned this professionally, right? Like when do you feel like you learned this professionally? And then like, when did you start to translate that like as a parent?
I feel like I learned it professionally first.
Okay.
And I feel like I was learning to incorporate it with my clients. And it was like, wow, look at me. And still completely would mess up. But I think the layer that's changing for me is in my marriage, like, wow, if I can learn to fully listen to my husband, and you know this with his personality, it's going to be like the angels will sing.
Right.
Yeah.
It is the hardest challenge for me because of the way he processes so much slower than me. But I am determined to learn to fully listen to that man. I mean, it is like, I like hold my pant legs sometimes, like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And it's so hard. So but I think that the layer before, so I've been always kind of working on that one, but as my children are becoming adults, like they're not, like one is 13 now, there's 13 by the way, and the rest are 22 to 29, your relationship changes and your advice is not welcome unless they ask. And I think that's what's really pushed me into the shut up, listen, and even if you have you can see a different way, it's just not your place anymore unless they ask.
So what makes it uniquely hard?
Because I think we do have wisdom sometimes and we know that something else might help them. And what I'm learning is that unless they ask, it just doesn't matter. So one other thing that's really pushing me into this space, though, is I have 2 kids who have really loved therapy, but that one is really working through things in therapy. And I went to this concert where this singer was singing, but sometimes they'll say something insightful.
Sometimes.
Occasionally.
Right? Sometimes you're like,
stop talking and play the next song.
This singer said something like, I wrote this song for my daughter, and she recently she's an adult, and she went to therapy, and she asked me to go to a session with her. And she was like, okay. And when I got there, she said that it was not very nice. Like it wasn't an easy thing. Like what was said of what her daughter experienced from her was a little bit like a sting, really difficult.
Oh, okay.
And she said what she learned in the moment she wanted to say, but don't you know that I loved you with all of my heart, or that was not my intention? Or can I give you a little backdrop to the story that you're telling me? All these thoughts came into her mind. And she said that the therapist said the only thing that matters is her perspective. She just needs to process her perspective. You can talk about yours another time, but right now she needs to talk about how she felt in the moment, regardless of your intentions.
Oh my gosh. This is...
I was like...
That's so deep. Because it points at, I think one of the underlying things with this is the competing need to feel understood.
Yes.
So the person sharing, so the daughter sharing in that therapy session is there to be understood and invited the parent to be understood.
To be understood.
But in that moment, the parent is like, but you don't understand my intentions or why that happened. But by interjecting that, you've shut down the daughter's ability to be understood, which that is tricky because who needs to be understood right now?
I think that's like a layer of people talk about servant leadership, which I think is so you're almost tired of talking about it because part of it is we don't unpack what does that really mean, but it's in the context of parenting. Sundie, I feel like what you're saying is so powerful because it is a different word for understood would be seen. It's giving someone deference to allow them to be seen, realizing we can't both be seen in this moment, and to serve you well means I have to lay down. Actually, it is a need that I have to be seen, but not here, not now. Like right now, I'm going to lay that down and allow you to be really seen. Yeah. Which is like really an interesting.
I know. Can you just feel it? I
can feel it.
I feel it deeply too. I have learned, and Cynthia has actually said to me sometimes before, she has said, Mom, first of all, I want to say this. I know you did your best. She has learned, it's like, but she actually she shouldn't have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think she says that because she's trying to say, nothing that I experienced was because you woke up one day and said, I'm going to make your day miserable.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, it's been hard to hear some of the things that she felt and experienced that I just, also, did you ever hear this one too? Like, they say that every children has a different experience in a household. Like,
100%.
All 5 of my children have a completely different perspective of their childhood.
Right.
That blows my mind. So what was hard for her was amazing for another. And maybe you were focusing so much on this one. This one was, wow.
So experience isn't static. It's dynamic, right? And it's based on the person experiencing it.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
So let them say it.
Right.
Without interjecting, well, can I just lend my just if they ask you later, that's kind of what I'm learning with my kids. It's just like, if they ask me later, I'll lend my perspective. But right now, I feel like all of them in their 20s are doing some processing of different things, and I am just listening or taking things, Steve, that you and I have talked about from super communicators, which is to ask, tell me more, and how so? To lean into curiosity, and then to maybe repeat back, which I love this. So what I'm hearing you say is blah, blah, blah. Did I get that right? I'm using that skill a lot.
Well, I do love that the mirroring skill does allow for a place for both to be seen, but in an appropriate way.
Yep.
And almost in an ordered way. Like once we are done, you feeling like you've been heard, then we can switch, but not until you've been fully heard and feel like I understand you.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Sundie, like in your like growth as a human, right, through the lens of your parenting experience, because you've been doing it a while and like you've had iterations, right?
Yeah.
Like what have been like the major growth moments in this area for you? Can you think of like times where it was like, oh, like I really had to grow? Like, was it an age that a kid turned a certain age, or a dynamic? Like, were there, just curious, like what would your like big learning moments go as you look back?
Two things really hit me, which was at one point I had 4 teenagers all in the house.
Oh my goodness.
So that moment, I remember hitting me in the face like, this is exhausting. Like I have 4 people, 13 and up, that were just sucking the life out of me. And what I realized was you know how they talk about the stages of parenting, they're like, it's physically exhausting when they're babies. It's logistically exhausting when they're in the elementary years. And then it's emotionally exhausting when they're teens. So when you have that many people having emotions, no one ever had a good day all on the same day.
Right.
And so when people ask me how it was to have 5 kids, I'm like, I wouldn't say like, I could handle the chaos, but what was hardest for me was that it was 5 people, human beings who were individuals that were processing different feelings on different days.
Wow.
And it hit me hard.
Yeah.
And it sucked the life out of me sometimes.
You
so
had to hold all of it.
I just felt
like a facilitator and a coach.
Yeah, that's right. That was a tough one. And then surprisingly, I think the thing I've talked the most about to my friends is how much I didn't understand that adulting kids in this world is not to be compared to a Gen Xer. Like my generation of adulting, we just kind of were kicked to the curb, go figure it out.
Right.
There's beauty in that, but it's a completely different world. It's just a different world. And I've had to learn not to compare and oh my gosh, and listen to what's challenging for them versus adulting thing has been really challenging for me.
How have you been doing it in the moment? In that moment where they're sharing something, you really want to talk or say something or interject. I'm just curious how you've been how have you been handling that or turning it to listening?
I think pretty quickly I learned to pinch my pant leg.
Yeah.
That's a really good skill.
We've talked about that. I like do this. I feel this tension. happening where I'm like, I want to tell you what to do so badly, or I hate what you're doing right now, or gosh darn it, just figure it out. Like these, and I will just pinch my pant leg, and it will just, it's an internal thing that just makes me shut up. And I've learned to say, this was the other one. I really learned to say, how can I help?
Ooh, that's a really good one.
It's nice that turns it into words for you, but in the right direction.
It does. It shuts me up, and then it puts it back on them. And sometimes they say, Gabe, I've learned that sometimes she'll say, or any of them will say, I don't know, I just need to listen. Then I'm like, well, there's my task right there.
Yeah.
You just named it. Or if I say, how can I help? And they say, I don't know, maybe some ideas. Okay. It's like then they're telling, that magical phrase has been pretty, so I think it's been through testing and learning. And I also think it's been honestly learned by arguing too. I think we have hit each other in the square face.
Yeah.
Not physically, but emotionally. And I've been like, well, that just didn't work.
Right.
And then I've learned from it.
Experience, like repetition.
Just gosh.
Lots of repetition.
Yeah.
And 4 teenagers.
Over.
I can't imagine. I have one daughter, 18, can't imagine 4 at the same time going through that phase like that, that's a task.
Yeah.
Well, how did you what have you been able to take out of that and then start applying, like going the other way, like in your coaching practice as you're working with other leaders, as you've experienced that, like what principles would you extrapolate?
I think the biggest principle that I've learned from the experiences I've learned is that because I have 5 and Steve knows this, no one has taken the same path. I have these friends who have 3 baseball players. And I'm like, well, that would have been nice, because then you all went to baseball together or you all loved sports. I have 5
all different,
all over the place,
completely different people.
I've thought about that before. Yeah.
It's exhausting. And that perspective has helped me as a coach just realize there is not a single answer. It's what shut me up as a coach. Because I feel like you're just one of my kids in the sense of, I don't know what your interest and your path is. It's all I know is probably very different than the person you're sitting next to.
Wow. So it sounds like coming in with way fewer assumptions.
Way fewer assumptions.
That's probably just a great human lesson. Let's just have fewer assumptions.
Right. I thought that when I was studying coach training, I was like, everyone should have to go through this in grade school or something in college because it does teach you that. What I fell in love with, this, is all these advisors and consultants, and I had mentors and people in my own life. They would give me some answer. I'm like, that's not the answer for me.
Right.
And there's something pretty cool about the coaching practice. That's what we're talking about. It's not having assumptions, letting the person kind of find their way and say what they need to say. And then, there might be answers. There might be something that needs to be handed to them, but it's almost like honoring you first as a human before, as you always say, Gabe, people are not problems to be solved.
Right. That's true.
But we treat it that way, especially at work all the time.
Yeah. And I think which kind of leads in a direction I was thinking too, because you can talk about this as a learned behavior, like learning a new behavior that I'm going to grab my leg and I'm going to shut up and I'm going to listen and I'm going to ask these 3 questions. But at the heart of the behavior, there's beliefs, right? And you just named one, that if I'm going to really be great at this listening thing, one is I have to believe at a fundamental level, people aren't a problem that I'm supposed to solve. Are there other things that beliefs that shift in order to be really good at that skill?
It's a good question.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know that's a little bit.
This is the RootsUp podcast where we give you answers to all these life's toughest questions.
Rephrase the question.
Yeah. So at the core of any behavior, right? If we're really after transformation, not just behavior modification, then what has to really shift isn't just a practice. It's an underlying belief that has to be really challenged. And so one of them I think Steve just named is I have to if I'm really going to show up curious, I'm really going to show up listening, then I have to believe at a core place. Other people aren't a problem for me to solve. That's not
huge.
I know, because I have one too. But
here's the deal. What's challenging that I'm hearing you say is sometimes I would like to believe that I'm the person that the beliefs would shift first. But I think that sometimes my behavior shifts before my beliefs.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I'm mad at myself for it sometimes, but I think that sometimes I'm still really angry and pissed about what's happening around me. But I've learned to shift my behavior for the situation. Then over time, I see that the behavior was right.
Yeah.
And it changed my beliefs.
Well,
I think that's a fantastic insight on how people change.
We
right?
see that in coaching all the time, right? It's like it's a two-way street where you're working on changing the belief, which will change the behavior, but also sometimes adjusting the behavior is what helps shift the belief. It's both and I think that I think this is a whole other episode you just brought up, Gabe.
No, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Because one thing that I had been thinking about recently, I forget what I heard that sparked the thought, but they were talking about how as a culture, we talk about personal core values, organizational values, but as a country society, one of our core values in America is efficiency. And so one of the ways that can play out in the day-to-day and in listening, which I think this is one of the underlying beliefs, is okay, let's say like me and Ashley are disagreeing on something. It's underlying its efficiency. I'm like, we need to solve this and we need to move on. So essentially, I'm prioritizing problem solving over my relationship with her. Because I know that what's good for our relationship is listening better.
Right.
But what I actually am believing matters more is solving the problem, which is kind of, I think in some ways, an efficiency thing.
Right, which is a belief, right? It's a belief of values, hierarchy.
I was thinking about that it's definitely a value. Because I was thinking, you and I are very similar in this. Efficiency is big for me too, but I'm married to someone who efficiency isn't even close to one of his top values. It's like the bottom. So in our communicating, he's not thinking, how efficient can I be when I'm talking to Sundie? But I am because it's a belief system that I'm like thinking it's the best for us.
Well, and I thought one of the ways you said this earlier, Sundie, like I picked up on, okay, one of the things that is, so then how do I stay motivated to listen well in those hard situations where I'm really biting my tongue? I wrote down one of the motivators might be just thinking about that need to be seen and understood.
Yeah.
Because I do care about that person. I want them to feel that way. And that might help motivate
wanting them to be seen, understood.
Yeah, wanting them to feel understood, and that's a motivator to slow myself down and listen better.
That's a good observation of what I said, and I would say I 100% have another one.
Okay.
Because I've been learning. This has been a whole learning thing. So I found this parenting coach. She's been amazing. I'll put her name. It's because I heard last name's hard to say. It was like Munch, but maybe Joe can put it in our notes for anyone who wants to follow her. She is only an adulting coach. And one thing she said on hers, I've been listening to her. I also read her book. It was a book called, it was like Finding Me While You're Finding You.
Wow, and, what a great title.
It was so good. It was so good. And she's a Gen Xer too. So it also related to a lot of like how I grew up and the things we dismiss that we've just been told to dismiss. But she said the most important thing in our life is our relationship with our children. So my motivation is that I want a good relationship with my kids. I don't want them to grow up and not want to hang with me, not want to be with me, or not want their children to be with me. So I'm very motivated by having a healthy relationship with my children. And so she's like, if that's the priority, then we have to figure out how to communicate with them in a way that still stays the top priority. So all these stupid communication things that I'm trying to figure out and learn are because the most important thing to me is that we grow together and still have a relationship.
Yeah. Well, this is a fascinating topic. Thank you for...
I've been thinking a lot about it. Thanks for asking. It's nice to like talk about what you've been thinking about.
This
super applicable like in all of our work, and I'm going in marriage and
oh my gosh,
friendships. And
I know. I love that this just dug a little deeper into the topic of listening, because how many times, especially with organizations and teams, have they asked for training and coaching on listening, and you can feel it in the room. It's like, but what does that even mean?
And also, why?
What does good listening look like?
I know.
What is it actually going to improve? And I feel like we started to scratch beneath the surface. Maybe we should pick that one up again another time.
Yeah, I think it is something that needs to be talked about more, and it is also needs to be named that it is hard. It's really hard.
All right, this conversation to me was really fascinating, got my mind going. I'm sure for Gabe as well, we could probably have asked 50 more questions to Sundie, but I thought about this one thing afterwards. I felt in the conversation, like, oh yeah, this area of listening is something I do want to grow in, but it kind of gets punted till later most days because it's hard and it doesn't feel urgent. And so I was trying to think, what's the one area that I want to level up in my listening? And I wondered if that'd be helpful for you as well. Like, what is the one place where you want to be more intentional about listening? And for me, what it turned out to be is that idea of when I'm in a conversation with someone and I feel the urge to say my thought or assert my opinion or not fully understand them and let them be seen, is a thing we've talked about at Greenhouse a lot, the idea of ask one more question. And so it's something I actually want to start doing today moving forward. Is that's like my trigger in my mind. Okay, just ask one more question, because then at least it'll force me to listen a little deeper and to delay my thoughts to later. But you heard Sundie mention some things as well, like pinching the pant leg and asking a specific question of tell me more or what else. It's almost like, what's your little trick that you can employ in that moment, whether it's at work, whether it's as a leader. That's a big one to really make sure you're listening to your team. It's in your marriage, your relationships with your kids. And so I guess that's my one takeaway today is like, where's that one area you want to level up in your listening? And then what's the intentional action you can use as a trigger every day, every moment to be growing in that area. So if this is an area you're really wanting to work on, message us, because this is something we coach people on a lot and love to help people with.